Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today on the Self-Storage Marketing Workshop. My name is Eva Chavez. I'm the owner of Beacon App Marketing, and today I will be going over some tips and tricks on how to master a marketing audit internally so that you can kind of know your performance better and know your market better. So pretty straightforward stuff here. Why do we do an audit? We are going to be assessing market effectiveness, which includes things like overall goals, reviewing the success of different campaigns, evaluating if you have key indicators that go over your return on investment, and also just kind of seeing if you have brand visibility if you're somebody who has multiple facilities, fees, and threats. So this is something that we want to do. An audit, something we want to do anywhere from 3 to 6 months. New facilities are constantly popping up. There's new trends that are constantly popping up. Our industry is seasonal, so month over month is not necessarily going to change so much, so we don't need to do it monthly, but seasonally we do have great shifts in who our clientele are in some areas in particular where we have snowbirds and things of that sort. And then that's also going to give us a little bit of insight into what our competitors are doing out in the market, and make sure that we're not falling behind on the overall best deal, or maybe we are lower priced and we can actually raise our rents, which would be the ideal situation for 2025 this year. And then the next step would be optimizing marketing budgets. So once we're able to identify the return on an investment and see where those dollars are coming from, that's where we can really start to put our money into. If we can start to see, hey, our dollars are coming from our organic mediums or organic sources, we want to go ahead and then start to put more dollars into having our website found more repetitively on that first page for more transactional keywords. So that is kind of one of those ways that we would optimize our marketing budget. If we already have that return on investment, if we don't, then we have to kind of go back to that step one and assess our marketing effectiveness and make sure that we have those metrics that we can measure from. Enhance our customer understanding, greater understanding of who it is that is renting from us. Each facility that I know that I've marketed across the last 9 years that I've been in this industry has been what I like to call is like basically a snowflake, because no one is ever the same. No snowflake is going to be the same instance of the last one that I ever deal with, and by that I am so happy. The next thing I think is pretty straightforward as well is enhancing your customer understanding across every single facility that I've marketed in the last 9 years. I've never really seen that every single instance is exactly the same as the last one that I marketed, particularly because I'm not marketing in the same market one, the same facility in the same market one. The next thing on our list is enhancing customer understanding. Pretty straightforward. Just really through that, you're going to be able to see the data, the behavior. This helps you refine customer profiles and personas. If you're using audience targeting within your PPC, if that's something that you're doing for your smart campaigns, if you have those running, or if you're doing anything that has to do with like asset creation, that has a lot of audience built techniques, or I'm sorry, audience built, something that you can use if you are doing audience targeting within any of your campaigns within PPC. So that would be a great reason to understand your customers, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But improving integration. So there is a ton of people that I know just off of the top of my head that I can tell you integrations are not fully set. So partially people think, if you're set up to have your reports, your management software so that you can run the numbers, that's all good and dandy. But ultimately, if you are not also making sure that your website and that your CMS and your PMS and all of those different softwares are actually complying and being able to integrate with. Next, we're going to talk about enhancing or improving integrations. A lot of people are on platforms that are not fully integrated with their marketing services. One of those things that a lot of times falls by the wayside because the software that is in question does check all the other boxes, and on top of that, it is cheap. Or it can be the cheaper one that's on the market. So I know that is a hard hurdle to overcome, but I think people need to start thinking about that more in 2025, how they can get their actual integrations with their marketing to speak to the ROI, which would show cradle to grave how your rentals are coming to you. This is going to give you a much clearer picture of how you should be spending your marketing dollars. And instead of having to go through and pay for PPC and, organic, if one of them is not working for you, then cut your losses and be able to refine your budget much more clearly to the channel that's bringing in transactions versus just kind of throwing everything at the wind and seeing what kind of picks up on that. Improving integrations is obviously going to ensure that all your marketing efforts are cohesive, well integrated across various channels and platforms. I know our industry is a little behind on that, and a handful of people that are probably listening to this call right now are on platforms that don't allow you to fully integrate with Google Tag Manager or any of the analytics, because at the end of the day, the final sale happens on a different URL, which hinders our ability to be able to then follow that rental all the way through to that final resting place, which is transactionally in your POS. So unfortunately, that is something that constantly happens within our industry, where it's an issue because then you don't have the availability to understand where you should be putting your marketing dollars more effectively, so you know which channels are bringing in those transactions. You're done with an audit, a big thing is now that we can set clear, measurable goals. If we are not able to effectively assess ROI, how are we going to effectively assess how this campaign is doing for us? Is it that we are getting a certain amount of clicks to a certain button? Is it that we have a certain amount of traffic, a certain amount of visibility? And those are all things, metrics that then we have to find out how we track those metrics within our system. So we go back to improving our analytics and our understanding of that analytics. So that is always, now that we've completed the audit, we are going to go ahead and start setting up clear, measurable goals. Those goals are going to be based off of the findings of the audit. The business can start kind of new KPIs to be able to achieve for whatever the next campaign is going to be that you guys are going to set out to, put into your marketing effectiveness. The next thing we're going to do is set clear, measurable goals. Based on the audit findings, the business can start new marketing goals that are specific, achievable, and relatable to the time. The next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting clear, measurable goals. This is going to be based off of the audit findings. We can then, the business then can take those findings and set out to, Next thing we're going to do is we're going to set clear, measurable goals based off of the audit findings. The business or the storage facility can set new marketing goals. These are going to be specific to what we just found out through the audit. Also, we're going to be able to see if we do have an ROI. Do we have, the availability to see those types of things? And if we don't, then how are we going to set clear KPIs that are actually going to bring in conversions, ultimately rentals or reservations or phone calls that are leads that are not just people calling in because they need to pay their rent or they have a complaint or they're calling for the facility down the street and they don't know if that's you guys or not. So we want to make sure that we figure out how we measure all of that. A big thing in 2025, I think people don't understand is that we're going to be dealing with a lot of compliance and alignment with industry standards. Industry standards meaning, in marketing, we have a set of industry standards that we deal with in terms of AI and generating content. And then also in, the marketing aspect, is it compliance? Is it compliant with what another big thing in 2025 is going to be compliance and alignment, ensuring that the marketing practices comply with legal standards and industry guidelines. That's going to be a big thing with AI and how predominant it's becoming. Is the content that's being generated your proprietary information? How does that legally stand in a court of law if someone were to come after you and say, hey, your AI generated content promised me this, and someone failed to read that information because they thought the AI was 100% accurate all of the time. So those are things that we always want to make sure that we're looking at, even if there is a large amount of content that's being added to your website, because there is a large amount of precedence that's being put on that. Then still have people proofread it. Even if you have a content editor who says that they're proofreading it, have 2, 3, 4 people proofread it, just to make sure that the tonality of it isn't boring. Also, let's try to find different ways to get creative. We can use different programs to make it more engaging and have it be in a more human voice as well. So I would encourage people to look into those types of programs. You will have to pay for them, but they are going to be definitely worth it in 2025. Everyone is going to be generating content through AI. And if you're not able to do that yourself and not have the AI bots understand that the content that's on your website is AI generated, you're going to get kind of left behind in the scope of things. So let's kind of move up on that. So I'd say jump on that as well. The thing is always leveraging technology and tools. Have you evaluated the current technology and tools that are out there? Have you looked at what you're currently using? Are they the most relevant things? Are you spending dollars where you shouldn't be spending dollars? A big thing that I've noticed is there's a lot of clients that I have who have these programs that are great, but they don't understand them or cannot use them to their robust powers. And so then you're really wasting your marketing dollars if you're not using these programs optimally. And they can get very expensive because some of them are pay for, how many citations or pay for how many this or that you deploy. And as you have credits that are associated to those deployments, how, are we now spending thousands of dollars that are kind of obsolete? So it's a huge thing to make sure that you're looking at what technology is being used at your company, why it's being used, and assessing the value of the use of that technology within the capabilities of your employees as well. It's a huge thing that I think people forget to do, because you can hand somebody a product and say, hey, use this, but if they just absolutely are not able to understand it or use it, then it's just as useless as a rock in their hand to do a marketing. The next slide. Components of a marketing audit are going to be obviously looking into the, moving on to the next slide, components of a marketing audit. So what are the things that you want to look at within the audit of your facility? You're going to want to look at the market. Within that market, you're going to look at overall demand for storage units in that specific geographic area, identifying economic factors. These are all things that I'm sure you guys did at the beginning of the purchase of the facility or handover, but it's something that you want to continuously do because every market is growing and changing. And so sometimes you'll have a couple of new storage facilities pop up and really take over because they're just putting out specials and they're actually putting themselves on the first page through PPC, or they've updated their GMB to get more reviews. These are all things that you really want to look at. You want to look at if people are downsizing, if there's going to be new communities in your area. A big thing that people look at also if there's going to be any Walmart, Lowe's, or I forget the other one. I think it's Home Depot. Those companies do huge market analysis. So if you see those companies coming in within the next couple of years, you can also be sure that you're going to have a huge influx of new renters coming in a couple of years. So maybe if your market is a little bit smaller now, you see it in 3-4 years, it's going to get bigger, and you're going to be the market. You're going to be able to dominate that market with your presence if you start kind of looking at all these factors now. Marketing audit. So the components of a marketing audit are market analysis. Some of this is done at the beginning of purchasing a facility, or when it's handed over, or when you're assessing a market to build a new facility. But again, this is just things that you always want to keep an eye on or keep your finger on the pulse. You want to see what the overall demand for storage units are in the area and identify if there are demographic or economic factors that are going to influence this demand. There might be natural disaster that's going to influence this. So maybe you want to get ahead of that and write a blog article that gives people actual information on what to do within that natural disaster, but also lets them know, hey, if you need to store your stuff, we're available for that piece of the natural disaster, right? Another big thing is there going to be growth or development in your area? If there's going to be a Lowe's, Home Depot, or a Walmart in your area, you can rest assured that your market is going to grow exponentially in the next couple of years once those are opened. So it might be nice to be that forward-thinking person that sees your market growing and expanding, and then also in that expansion getting new storage facilities. So you want to be number one in both the organic and GBP placement before those expansions and growths happen. Even if you're maybe one of 2 or 3 facilities now, just be the most competitive facility in that market now, so that when anybody else comes into the market, it's you against the REITs, if that's what ends up happening. If you don't have an extra space or public storage now, at least if they do come into your market and are able to spend the dollars to get ahead of you, you can be at least the third person on the page, right? On the next step, we have the competitor analysis, which entails identifying and evaluating other storage facilities in the area. I think they should be done on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. Maybe one of your managers goes in and fills out a sheet that has all of the competitors that you've listed in that sheet. And I'm going to go ahead and give you guys an example of that and actually show you what a filled out sheet looks like in an example from one of my clients, but it's all white labeled, so you won't be able to see any of the information. But the next step is evaluating your competitors, just looking at other storage facilities in the same area, making sure that you guys are matching up to the pricing models, marketing tactics that they're using. Of course, I don't suggest that anybody go for that race to the bottom. That's never the best way to market your business. But in certain markets, it's just unavoidable, because we have seen that in 2024, those REITs were kind of hitting the market hard. So it was something that we did have to do to be able to be competitive. But without looking at your market and seeing what your actual competitors are doing, you would never know to do that. So just making sure that you're doing that. And I will give you guys an example of some of these, of the market analysis, the competitor analysis, and the internal marketing process in some videos and other things within my thing on this. Was step on this is going to be your competitor. The next step on this is going to be your competitor analysis. What you're going to end up doing is the next step on this is going to be your competitor analysis. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to identify your competitors within a 3 to 5 mile radius. I would determine this by seeing how far your current customers are coming from, and then determining what radius that would be for you guys, and then just seeing where you have strengths. The next step on this is going to be your competitor analysis. You're going to go in and identify other storage facilities in the same region. I would say 3 to 5 mile radius, but also you can go a little bit deeper than that and actually see where your clients are coming from with their zip codes. And then if there's a mass of them that are coming from a further distance in the 3 to 5 mile radius, and I would suggest going as far as the clients are coming from. But what essentially that will do is it's going to give you a wider scope of competitors that you're going to have to compete against. What you're going to do on my next slides, I will be going over how I do some of these things myself individually so that you can kind of see an example of what a market analysis is, competitor analysis, and then internal marketing process. Although it may seem like I've already said this, this is different. Internal marketing process reviews the effectiveness and efficiency of your storage company's existing marketing efforts. This is going to be how well those marketing efforts are actually working for you. Again, we're going to go back to the return on investment, though. If we cannot follow the channels to where the actual rentals are coming from, it is kind of a mixed bag of if we can really review these items that are being paid for. So, do we have the right software that's giving us the best advantage to be able to market our facilities in 2025 against everybody else that is starting to kind of get on the trend of technology and websites actually following the rental from cradle to grave so that we can see, did my rental come from an organic GBP posting, or was it from Yelp, or where did these come from so that I can start spending my advertising dollars more effectively. In this next clip, I'm just going to show you guys how I go through a competitor survey. I go directly to Google Maps, take your facility address. Right now I'm just using a random one. And we can see here that that is attached to a storage facility. The next thing I like to do, then just kind of pinpoint where it's located. So we see that that's storage facility. That's the pinned marker that it's at. And then I just type in storage. And then I see in that general area what other storage facilities are near me. So as you can see, this is a pretty populated and very, very competitive area. We have public storage, extra space, public storage, pretty much north, south, east, and west of us, and it is a very competitive market. So what I would do in this market is essentially go through and kind of click to see what my nearest facilities are. So I would come in here and pick this person and just look at their overall value. And once I'm looking at that, there's a couple of other things that I like to look at as well. Like, even if in this 3 mile radius, there are competitors over in this area, I'm really going to leave this area alone. I'm not going to target this area too predominantly. One, because there's not a lot of streets that lead over here. So there's a kind of like what I would say is a geographical blockade. And then also there are a lot coming from that area of public storages that they have to pass by in order to get to you. Although I would wish that we would be number one and above them and be able to get our people to pass by every single one of those public storages, which they might if they're smart and don't want to deal with those insane rental increases that extra space and public storage sometimes will get you with at a low price and then raise your rent 10 times in 1 year. But otherwise, it is pretty much kind of out of the way. So I'm gonna try to stay clear of these areas. What I'm really gonna look for is areas that we don't have as much competition, and two, that there are maybe some really good clusters of buildings or streets, so that we know that there's houses that are a little bit closer together here. Some of these places that have more land, you're going to know that those houses that are in those areas probably don't need storages predominantly. So it's always good to look at that. One of the things that I also like to make sure is if you do see that there are things like the Village, Nichols Hills, Western Village, Pied Piper, any of these smaller boroughs or neighborhoods or whatever they're called in your area, you're going to want to call out to those in GMB and make sure that they're, again, ones that are areas that your current customers are coming from. If you're calling out to only Oklahoma City, everybody's calling out to Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is a huge, vast area. And you have 20 locations that you can call out to. That's no longer just for service area, and it's for anybody who thinks that they have customers in that area. And so if you come in and you zoom in and you say, hey, you know what? I think I have customers that come from McCory Heights or Persimmons Hills, Ravenwoods, that Ravenswood, then we want to put those in if they're available on the GVP. So the next step in this process is going to be the competitor analysis. What we're going to do is we're going to be taking the information that we were looking at on the previous slide and compiling it into an Excel spreadsheet. That way we can make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, that we are on that first page taking notes of what's happening in our market, and also kind of looking to see if there is availability for other types of unit mix-ups. If you see that in your area 5x5s across the board, when they're available, are gone, but your 10x10s or your 10x15s aren't doing so well, maybe it's time to do some conversions, downsize, or vice versa. Your 10x10s are doing great, but your 5x5s are sitting vast and empty. Maybe break down some walls and make some more 10x10s. It's a good way to kind of look at how your market is doing and what is flooding the market in terms of the unit styles that are out there. To that Google Maps page that we were on previously and type in the address that we had seen. And what we'll do then at that point is we'll verify the pin marker, which we see here is our location, which this is. And then what I go ahead and do is I type in storage. And then what Google does is it's going to give me all of the local storage facilities that are in my area that I can possibly compete against or go to, thinking that I'm a user that wants to rent from one of these places. We can see that this area does have a good competition of REITs and other just smaller, Secure Care, American Self Storage, other smaller guys that have some prominence in that area. So what we do is we'll go ahead and click on our nearest competitor. That one does not have a website. So then we kind of just gauge out. What I like to do is I like to see what my 3-mile radius is. So I right click here, I hit measure distance, and then I kind of go what I think is about 3 miles. That was almost 3 miles. So it's like 277. So we can go a little bit further. That's 3.5. Okay, perfect. Let's take that down to 3. Okay. So just right at 3 miles. Same thing down. You can do a 3-mile radius this way and then just kind of see who's in that kind of area that would be your direct competition. If you have people who come in from a 5-mile radius, 6-mile radius, then you can obviously change this to more align with who your current customers are. But then I just go through and, like I said, click on the ones that are in the area. So that one didn't have a website. So the next biggest one is going to be this public storage one here. I will go ahead and click on that. This is the sponsored one. Of course, I'm going to click on that. American Self Storage. Let's go ahead and clear the measurements because I don't need them. American Self Storage. I'll go ahead and click on that one and bring up the website. I know that this is a little bit far out of what our range was, so we'll go over here instead. It seems like we have enough competition where we would like to do this anyways. Go ahead and keep clicking on those and keep opening up the new ones that are in that area. Again, this is going to take some time, and this is why I encourage you to put this on your managers so that way they can provide this to you on a monthly basis. But then once you've clicked on a few, what you'll do is you'll go ahead and start entering that into what I call my competition survey. I take any of these competitors, I'll take the URL, I'll copy that, I'll paste that into here, and I'll put the competitor's name. So let's say competitor blah blah, and then paste into the URL. As you can see here, there is already one in here. Then I will take their address, place that there, and then I will just verify how far away they are from our address. So let's say this one was 3. Their address goes here, whatever. And then let's say they were 0.78 miles from us. I like to put 0. Now what I'll do is I'll take all of the units that they have. So in this facility, my facility, I'll take my facility first actually. and I put all of the information in. So this facility has drive up 5x10s, drive up 10x10s, and drive up 10x15s at these different prices. I then go ahead and highlight that my facility has these specific units. I don't just limit it to verifying those prices within the market, but I do like to make sure that I'm highlighting those ones to make sure that those are the ones that I'm really evaluating. So you can see here on this one, my client had a $40 value for their unit. The average market value that I could find in their 3 to 5 mile radius was $53. So they're actually below what the average market is. You can see that their competitors were 54, 55, and 54. And they also have a really good special where they have 50% off 3 months going on right now. That's what my client has. So they've also got the best special that's on the market. This then allows me to see what my next steps would be. Is it that we don't have the right type of units or market's needs? And if that's something that rings true, then there might not be anything that we can do in the moment. But obviously, we always hope that it's either pricing special or some outlandish low price that's kind of driving the market. So that's how I assess average market competitor value and just kind of see what also the unit mixes are that are on the current market. That's a big thing. I like to see if we have a ton of 10x10s and we're running our special on the 10x10s, everybody is looking at those 10x10s. Everyone has a special on those 10x10s. If the market is flooded with those, then there's really not a reason to push those as predominantly as maybe a 10x15 with a much better special if there are no 10x15s on the market. Because when that person comes in for that 10x15, you're absolutely going to capture that person versus trying to compete for that lowest price for the 10x10 and not have that special on a 10x15 for somebody who might actually want it. So that's some food for thought. Thing you'll see me say quite often is displays like they are cheaper. So some of these competitors, when you go to their website, it will display their 50% off as their actual price. It doesn't have a cross out, a strikeout, or anything. So it really just honestly displays like they are cheaper. And if someone were to walk in and say, hey, is this the actual price? They would have to then divulge that, no, this isn't the actual price. This is a discounted rate. But it does hinder the way that people are viewing your units versus their units when it looks like your unit is double the price of the guy down the road. But really, the guy down the road has now marketed a 50% special as his primary price. So I like to always just take note of that and make sure that we're looking at that as something, as a factor. If you don't have a strikeout feature within your website, that can be hindering because people then, if they see that strikeout factor, then they can kind of associate that to the same price as what they see on those other ones. But again, these are just things that happen as you're assessing the market and understanding what it is that your competitors are doing and what you can do to either align yourself with those competitors or also set yourself apart.